So, a few years back, I decided to break my lease and leave town to live in the wilderness. I had been dirtbagging out of my truck for about 3 months, and was floating up and down the Blue Ridge Parkway in western North Carolina. I would park at a trailhead and hike in a mile or so, camp a few nights, and move on. One night, I got startled by a man who must have been about 40. He took me by surprise, but was apologetic, and so I offered him a beer and my fire since it was already dark and kinda cold. I was wary of him, but I'm a big man. 25 years young, 6'2", at 225 pounds. I ain't scared of much. I knew I could hold my own if I needed to. We chatted until late about hunting and trapping, but by morning he was gone. The next night I settled into a new site, and as I was making dinner, this man shows up again. I thought it odd, but not threatening, and he spent another night hanging out, and again was gone by morning. When he showed up at a third site, I started to feel uneasy. That night, he tried to kiss me by the fire. I jumped up and he advanced again. I decked him and pinned him down. I told him if he tried anything again, I'd cut his balls off and feed them to him. He left. I got up early and hiked to the truck, only to find him there waiting. He was asleep in his vehicle, so I snuck away. The next day, I parked at a trailhead and watched from the trees as he pulled in behind my truck and started hiking toward where he assumed I was camped. Once he was out of sight, I slashed all 4 tires and noped out hard. This happened a few months ago on a trip I was taking to see my grandparents. They live about an hour and a half away, and I take the Natchez Trace Parkway to their house. For those who aren't familiar with it, it is a national parkway that is surrounded by woods, for lack of a better description. Along the parkway, there are many places you can pull off and see landmarks from American history, most having to do with Native American Indians. There are no stores or gas stations along the parkway without having to exit off and drive a few miles to the nearest town. They do provide several bathrooms on the trace for travelers. For this trip, I was alone, since my husband had to work. I had left my grandparents' house, and I was about 45 minutes into my drive when I realized the large drink I had gotten at Taco Bell was a huge mistake. I had to pee. Like really had to. I was on a long stretch of the trace where the next exit was a good 20 miles ahead. Now, I was prepared to wait it out, since I was alone and didn't want to stop at the bathrooms, as usually there were other travelers stopping there to rest and use the restrooms. When I got closer to the restrooms, I decided I would pull in and look around and see if maybe no one would be there, or a large group of people would be there. My bladder felt like it was about to explode, and I really thought I might have an accident if I tried to make it to the next town. So I pull in and immediately notice a parkway ranger parked at the restrooms, along with one other vehicle. I figured since the ranger was there, I would be safe to run in and use the restroom quickly. I got out of my car and caught the ranger's eye, and he nodded his head at me, so I locked my car and went inside the restroom. I was thinking he would stay until I left the restroom, so I felt completely safe. When I got in the stall, I heard a car start up and thought it was the other vehicle that was sitting in the lot. I was very wrong. Not 15 seconds later, the door to the restroom opened, and someone started banging on the stall door. I was mid-pee and it had to go so bad I couldn't stop. I could see a pair of men's shoes under the stall, and 2 very large, hefty legs. He wasn't saying anything, just banging on the door. I finished as quickly as I could and got my pants pulled up and everything, then just froze. I didn't know what to do. It was obviously the ranger who had left the parking lot. This guy is banging on the door and not saying a word. I finally found my voice and asked what he wanted. He told me to come out of the stall. His voice sounded so calm compared to the banging. I yelled at him and told him I had my phone with me and was going to call 911. He just kept banging and calmly telling me to come out of the stall. I was praying the latch wouldn't break. I unfortunately and stupidly didn't actually have my phone with me, but I still pretended I was calling 911 and talking to a dispatcher. The man stopped banging and I heard him run out of the restroom. I waited a minute, or what felt like an hour, and heard his vehicle start up, so I decided to run to my car. I got my keys ready, and as soon as I opened the door, I unlocked my car and ran as fast as I could and got in. I immediately locked my doors and started my car. The man was still parked in the lot in his truck, so I grabbed my phone and called 911. They told me to wait right there while they transferred me to the ranger's dispatch. Well, I guess the man saw me get my phone and realized I hadn't called when I was inside the restroom. He jumped out of his truck and started coming towards my car. I was still waiting to talk to the other dispatcher, but there was no way I was just going to sit there while this man tried to break into my car or something. So I reversed out of the lot and onto the road. The dispatcher came on the line and I was focused on driving and telling her everything that happened, and that a ranger had been there like 5 minutes earlier. She told me to hold on while she tried to find the ranger that was there, and I glanced in the rearview mirror to see the truck right behind me. I screamed into the phone to tell the dispatcher, but I guess I was on hold because she didn't come back on the line for another 30 seconds or so. When she came back, I was screaming that he was right behind me, and she was trying to calm me down. She said that the ranger was just down the road from me, and to put my flashers so when I passed him he would know I was the one who needed help. When I put my flashers on, the man slowed down and got further behind me. I had gone about a mile when I saw the ranger. He got behind the truck and pulled the man over. I pulled over about 500 feet in front of them. I watched as the ranger made the man get out of his truck and handcuff him and then put him into the police car. The ranger then came to talk to me and said that the man said it wasn't him and just denied everything. Luckily, the ranger recognized him since he was in the parking lot when I pulled up. The ranger told me I could go, so I left and I went home. I haven't heard what happened to the man, if anything. I have never driven over the trace by myself since, and I always make sure I use the restroom before I leave my grandparents'. I still have no idea why the ranger left the parking lot. I was too shaken up when I talked to him to think to ask. So crazy guy who bangs on bathroom stalls? Let's never, ever meet. The year was 1989, and I was around 4 or 5 years old and living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at a housing shelter for homeless or low-income families, located on Stinson Avenue in Germantown. A horror in of itself. They were constant and ever-present bullies and troublemakers, low-life alcoholic and or drug-addicted parents, and almost zero parental guidance. But that's not the point of the story. I was a really cute kid, and often caught the attention of adoring adults, so it was not immediately disconcerting to my mother when a young couple staying at the shelter began spending time with me. I liked them. I remember them as Tom and Carol. They were nice and seemed to enjoy having conversations with me. They usually offered some kind of treat, and we all know that's the way to gain the favor of children. Anyway, I remember the venue of our encounters becoming increasingly intimate, meaning that at first we would always meet in the common areas, until eventually they gained familiarity with my mother and began inviting me to their dorm room. I didn't mind it as I liked them, and counted them as friends. We would meet in their dorm room, and things were always pleasant. They would talk to me, and I really enjoyed the attention and being talked to as a contemporary and not as a child. I looked forward to the time we would spend together, and always felt disappointed whenever my older brother would show up. He always showed up, especially when Tom and Carol began asking my mother if I could accompany them to the store or the laundromat. My older brother would always rear his head, and I remember just wanting him to go away. Tom and Carol were my friends, and I didn't want to share them. Anyway, things went on like this for some time. I can't remember specifically how long, though. I do remember looking for Tom and Carol one day and not finding them. I was disappointed and a little sad. They were my friends, and they were gone. They didn't even say goodbye, just an empty dorm. Around that time, my mother shared an upsetting story with me. As it turned out, the FBI came and arrested Tom and Carol, as they were suspect in the disappearances of several children. A man from the FBI interviewed my mother, and she didn't mention that I had anything to do with him, and neither did any of the other fellow tenants. I guess that keeps in the tradition of not talking to the police, so I was never interviewed. My mother also explained that she was the one sending my older brother to keep an eye on me. My very flawed and very street smart mother. She played it cool and allowed me to have friends, but sent her henchmen to suss out the situation. Tom and Carol, I cannot remember your faces, but somehow I can see those of the children you stole away from their parents and introduced them to a terrible fate. This next story is something that had happened to me a couple years ago. At the time, I was in bed with my girlfriend at that time when I felt an uneasy feeling. I glanced over at the window and I saw a silhouette of somebody staring into the only crack in the blinds. I remember being very scared as I got up and I went to the back door to look onto the back patio since the window at the time didn't have any blinds. I looked out just enough to confirm that it was in fact a person. At the time, the only thing I can think to do, since I was just so full of panic, was I ended up just running into my room, got underneath the covers, and later on, I finally eventually fell asleep. I'm still not, to this day, not entirely sure if that was real or if I could have possibly dreamt that. But, like I said, to this day, I cannot sleep in a room if the window is not covered by blinds. Thanks for tuning in to another True Scary Stories from Reddit. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and also subscribe for even more dark stories. That's it for this episode. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe.